Hi there, everyone. We decided that we're going to do some excerpts of the books that John and I have done, and we're going to divide them up into shows for each individual book. And John, you have 6 books now, right? But you're
Yes,
working on
sir.
a 7, so he's got six
Yes.
books. So today we're going to talk about John's going to read a little excerpt from As Long as I Have Lips, and then we're going to talk about it. So it's your stage, John. Go for it.
Wow. Okay, here we go. Well, as long as I have lips, like Kelly said, it was my fourth book, and it was a complete turnaround from everything I had written in my previous 3 books. Obviously, the first one was a true mob story. That was a nonfiction story that was. Probably one of my favorites. And then the second was a spoof on that. With I had mobsters and zombies, so I call that one Dead Fellas, and that was pretty much a joke based on a lot of the stories that I had left over from The Boss Always Sits in the Back, my first book, and just they never made it to the actual book. So I had all these bizarre stories. So I figured, how would these wind up if these guys wound up as zombies? Hence, Dead Fellas. My third book, after living in LA for a while, I had come to hear a recurring theme of things that brought people out to California at that particular time and what they were going through with their lives. So I decided to expand on that and tell that story. And of course, in that story, The Delivery Man was the third book. He is a vigilante who goes around righting the wrongs that happen to innocent people. So, as you can imagine, in the Mafia book, the first one, a lot of people get killed. In the second one, well, you got to get killed to become a zombie. So, a lot of people get killed. And of course, in a vigilante book, people get killed. And I was like, I'm sort of a peace loving guy. Time to write something else. So I had always had in my mind this story for a screenplay that I wound up writing. And while it was sitting in my computer not doing anything, I decided to blow it out. And Kelly knows what that means, simply because a screenplay cannot exceed certain genres, can only have 90, 100, 110, 115 pages. Um, so I had to take this, what I think was maybe like a 95-page romantic comedy, and blow it into a 220-page book. So I got to add so much more and have backstory and all of that. But the part that I enjoyed most was the research that I did, because you see, um, as long as I have lips, it takes place in the New York City advertising industry and cosmetic industry, obviously lips, and it's all about lipstick and the quest for these two competing advertising agencies to go after this cosmetic company to get the account. But also, one of the big things about this is that, unlike a lot of other stories that you may remember about the advertising industry, it was always the older man goes after the younger woman. I flipped that around completely, and it's now the older women who are after the younger men in the industry. And so I don't have to tell you that, though a lot of women loved my book, The Boss Always Sits in the Back, they were a little skittish about zombies. So that one took a while to catch on. And then, of course, it was 50-50 with the vigilante. Everybody loves to see a vigilante do the right thing and make those who did something wrong pay for it. But I had to get those women back into the fold. So I knew that as long as I have lips, nobody gets killed. Uh, there are no zombies. And the sex isn't even blatant. It's all double entendre, all very assumed, and that made it even better. So people loved it. So the primary male character in this story, like I said, is a young guy from Montana who went to college out there and got a job with a big advertising company who had the John Deere account, because that's what you do out there in Montana. And and then he got a job in New York City, and he always wanted that New York City job. So, in what I did in the first chapter of As Long as I Have Lips, was after identifying uh, Jeffrey on his way to work, I decided to let everybody know why Manhattan, and specifically an area called Madison Avenue, was the focal point of the advertising industry during that last century. We had the old 20th century. So here we go. No one can ever deny that the borough of Manhattan was the birthplace of the advertising industry, which became known by the island's multi-lane artery that runs north from 23rd Street to 142nd Street along the city's grid, and named for America's fourth president, James Madison. As the number of the nation's newspapers increased in the second half of the 1800s, especially with several dailies in New York City alone, the need for slogan factories proliferated, causing the industry of advertising to blossom. During the 20th century's first quarter, as early skyscrapers made their way uptown, the pioneering advertising agencies claimed the avenue as their territory and made the term Madison Avenue synonymous with the industry. It began with the promotions of local events and products, then precipitously grew into national print and radio ads. Every housewife wanted to know what to buy as she listened to the magic box in the living room, and the mighty men of the advertising industry were happy to supply her with commercials ranging from the cigarettes her husband wanted to smoke and the shirts he needed to wear, to the soap she'd need to wash the kids and their clothes. The one product ad agencies determined sold best with the stay-at-home demographic was soap. Soap by every manufacturer of every variety and for every use, as long as they can afford the agency's fees and the broadcaster's rates. The result spawned the never-ending stream of advertisements on radio and television shows that gave birth to its own genre, the daytime soap opera. 30-minute 30-minute serialized dramas each happy homemaker could relate to while her husband was at work. Their kids were in school, the clothes were drying outside on the line, and every 8.5 minutes there would be a 120-second set of 4 commercials telling her everything she needed to put on the household shopping list. And she obediently did it. But it was when the wonderful world of television erupted across North America in the early 1950s that Madison Avenue became the road paved with gold. It wasn't long before America's population became obsessed and looked forward to commercials showcasing the new car models released every September for the following year. In 1955, the Volkswagen Beetle was introduced to America for only $1,050, and Cadillac sold its convertible Coupe de Ville for $4,400. The country's new highway system was crisscrossing the continent as consumers were told by song to see the USA in your Chevrolet. In natural succession, the next fad to inundate the public were the endless miles of billboards that peppered the highways, freeways, parkways, and turnpikes. Burma Shave, Howard Johnson, Stuckey's, Dairy Queen. There were thousands of them, whether nationally known companies or local mom and pop diners. Each was designed to entertain, inform, and entice every vehicle's occupants as they cruised by at 60 miles an hour. This was all in conjunction with endless TV, radio, and print ads for gasoline companies whose neatly uniformed, cap-wearing, always smiling Caucasian attendant would check the air in your tires, the oil in your engine, and clean your windshield while filling the car's tank with fuel at 29 cents a gallon, all sucked from the ground and processed from the oil fields of America. By the 1960s, fashion, music, alcohol, film, and tobacco companies had realized that spending a couple of $1 million to promote their products would result in a rapid return in the hundreds of millions. It also didn't take long for political parties to realize the value of having Madison Avenue work for them. From images of a candidate's wholesome, God-worshiping, clean-cut family to nuclear devastation, advertising was to become the primary factor in determining election outcomes. By the 1970s, cars, beer cans, liquor bottles, airlines, cereal boxes, fashion, soup cans, remote and exotic vacation locations, everything was appearing as subliminal product placement in TV shows and feature films. Everything America saw, heard, smelled, ate, drank, voted for, cleaned with, smoked, read, traveled to, wore, or drove had Madison Avenue's hands in it. There was no limit to what they could or would promote. Early in the game, the advertising boys found one essential factor to be more effective than anything else in selling whatever product they were contracted to publicize, and they never stopped using it. If anything, they consistently improved on the endless ways to exploit it. Sex. Sex sells. Beginning in the 1950s, the more an advertisement showed attractive, enticing women exposing skin or cooing a double entendre, or a dashing, well-dressed man smoking a pipe and holding a martini as he stood next to his new home and car, the more that product sold and stayed in the minds of the consumer. Men wanted the woman in the ad, and women wanted to be the woman in the ad. At least that's what was being put into the minds of the public. There was no stopping Madison Avenue, and the bigger the industry became, the more money flowed into its agency's coffers and the coffers of their clients. That was all that mattered. Then came the digital age in the early 1990s, and things began to change drastically. The age, race, and sex of the up-and-comers went through a transformation. Madison Avenue had always been a straight white man's domain, where college graduates would spend several years in apprenticeship under an agency's elders before being allowed to present a campaign to a client. Suddenly, men and women in their 20s of all cultures and sexual orientations were looked to for the slogans and campaigns that would lead the industry into the next century. In addition, unlike the old school crew, this new generation knew how to work in the embryonic and rapidly growing world of computer technology and the internet. It wasn't long before the memories of three martini lunches in the Oak Bar at the Plaza Hotel were all that remained of the once ruling agencies of Madison Avenue. The companies that didn't merge or go out of business were absorbed by conglomerates and relocated into home offices across the country or to another continent entirely. For some, the rents of Madison Avenue were their demise. So they moved downtown into the trendy, regentrified, and less expensive buildings of Tribeca, the West Village, and the Flatiron District. A few of the older agencies enlisted young talent and relocated into the new addresses of Midtown Manhattan, such as the majestic twin-towered 55-floor Time Warner Center, erected on the 4.5-acre site of the famous New York Coliseum. The Time Warner Center opened its doors for business in 2003, which resulted in a few longtime Madison Avenue agencies to quickly move in. Arthur O'Connell and Rupert was one of them, and Jeffrey Holland had made it to these offices despite his unlikely background with those he now worked alongside. I hope you enjoyed that.
Well, you sure painted a picture.
Thank you.
Yeah, I felt like I was there and I wasn't even born yet in the 50s, but when it all started, but I felt like, yeah, it was painted a good picture. And now it's leaving me wanting to know what happens to Jeff Holland.
There you go.
What's
And
going to happen? So
he's
he's going to claw his way to the top, or
no, no, actually, actually, his naivete and gentlemanly ways actually get him to the top.
oh, good.
As opposed to
A good guy winning.
never the standard. I went in the opposite direction on everything. Instead of being the underhanded, lying, cheating, blah 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 corporate executive, I made him the good boy who succeeds. And it's the woman who tries to get the older woman who uses her finesse and status in life to try to get over on him, and he winds up beating her. But there's a whole other story that's involved that includes the CEOs of the cosmetic company and one of the advertising agencies, and like I said, the competing ad execs, and then even their assistants. We don't call them secretaries anymore. Even their assistants have something going on too. So there you go. That's from my fourth book, As Long as I Have Lips, and you can get that on Amazon or at johndamore.com, JONDAMORE.com, where you can get a signed and personalized copy. Can't get those on Amazon.
Right. Right.
That was fun.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. Yeah. I'm sure people will be interested and want more. Want to know more.
Well, yeah, I thought, I would imagine you'd have some questions about the soap opera aspect of that, seeing as you've
Well,
had your
I understand, that I understand the whole thought behind the marketing of wanting to market to housewives during their soap operas,
yeah,
because they're all home. They were all home. That's why the soap operas have died, because now women work.
yep,
So
that's
they've
true.
gone online, but they're not as big or popular as they used to be, but women were home. I grew up watching soap operas with my mother. And got hooked on, the same soap operas she liked. And my mother wasn't one to sit around and watch soap operas much. She was always on the go, but she did have a couple of them that she really liked to watch.
That's funny. I remember my account of that. My mother's mother, who had gone blind, oddly enough. Every day she sat in front of the TV, and if she was babysitting me or whatever or stuff, I'd have to sit in that room and just tolerate whatever this was that was going on screen. But she would sit there and she knew every storyline and everyone's voice, and it was interesting. So that was that. Though I did have other aunts who were more Queen for a Day. You probably don't remember Queen for a Day. A woman came on, a group of two or three or four women, I have no recall, would come on to this half-hour show, which, as you know, was only 24 minutes, not counting the commercials that were in there, and the credit time. And they gave their tales of woe, my husband disappeared during World War II and left me with 14 kids, and we don't have a dishwasher, or not even the dishwashers weren't. We don't even have an ironing board, and something like that. And all these horrific tales, and then it had the clapometer that determined what woman would get that day's and then you take this woman who barely had anything, and you gave her a mink coat, give her something that she could use, a washing machine. No, they would give
Well,
her
she
a
could sell the mink coat and get
oh,
some.
or she'd get it robbed by the time she got home. But who knows? But that was those were the kind of shows, and the quiz shows. There were a lot of those on too.
Price is Right,
Uh,
Jeopardy, and yeah.
so there you go.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
my take on advertising.
Okay, so we got a little taste of what you have for As Long As I Have Lips. So anybody again that wants to buy it, we'll put the website down here too. We'll put the website.
There you go.
Oh,
Look
there
at
it
that.
is in your
There's the
frame.
cover
Yep.
right there.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot,
Well,
folks.
okay, thank you for sharing with us, John. All right, see you soon.
Bye bye.
All views expressed in this video belong to Kellie Nicholson, John D'Amore, and guests. These discussions do not represent the opinions of any entity whatsoever with which they have been affiliated now or will be in the future. The opinions expressed are solely theirs, and since they are critically thinking human beings, these views are subject to change, subject to revision, and subject to rethinking at any time. These conversations are not meant to be taken as advice and are only for the purpose of entertainment. All statements may be based on hearsay and not necessarily valid proof of any claims in this video. It is not our intention to teach or advise on any topic. Unless otherwise noted, all photos are public domain. Thanks for watching A Slice of Life with Kellie and John.